And now, broadcasting from Titletown, USA, here's Joe Simon.
Thank you, David Lee, for that great voice intro. The image voice of the NFL on hand here. We also have Brian Duncan, Hall of Famer, Dove Award winner, Grammy Award winner, who does a great job singing the show's theme song. But today we continue with our series in our persons or people of interest. And in a moment, we'll bring in Joellen Schwandt, who's going to tell us about the Global Leadership Summit. And you know what's fascinating to me is this is a leadership summit that's coast to coast and around the world since 1995. It takes place in the early Thursday and Friday of August. I believe it's the first Thursday and Friday of August. We'll have the specific dates here for you in a moment. This show's all about leadership. It's all about if you're sitting on the side of the road and you just can't get it started again, and you know you're a leader, this is a way to sharpen your axe and get back in the game and do what you're created to do. This is for somebody who wonders, are we born leaders or are leaders developed? Leadership. Like I said, it started in 1995. Over 250,000 people attend this two-day event that was born and still is broadcast and satellite fed throughout the nation and the country out of Barrington, Illinois, a western suburb of Chicagoland, Illinois. So let's bring in our friend and let's call her the ambassador, one of the ambassadors to the Global Leadership Summit. There she is, Joellen Schwandt. Joellen, good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Joe? Thanks so much for having me here today. This is such an honor to be able to represent the Global Leadership Network and just share a little bit more about what we're doing and really what God's up to, in leadership. So thank you.
So you just hit the nail on the head. You're going right for it, and that's exciting. So how do we take leadership, scriptural principles, and bring them into the church house? What? Yeah, bring them into the church house as well as the marketplace. Can you just let's just get right at it. How does that happen? Why has it happened? And how does this continue to thrive?
Yeah, so interesting enough, I just had an epiphany this last year about, there is the spiritual gift of leadership, and God has given the gifts of the Spirit to all of us. And so, in where He has called us, whether that's to be a mom or a dad or a CEO of a company, or just being a manager, an employee and stuff, God has given us influence wherever we're at. And so, giving us that ability to be a leader, to lead others to Jesus, to lead others in our workplaces, in skills that, that we're teaching people every day. But the Global Leadership Summit actually digs deeper into kind of what I call the components of leadership, to how do you have a great culture of leadership? How do you have conflict resolution? How do you have good conversations when you're in these tense moments within a conversation about what needs to change in the company and different things like that. So the Global Leadership Summit brings these neat principles through some of the speakers that we have that come from all different backgrounds of leadership, to be able to create this one event for 2 days that gives you kind of what I call the leadership boot camp that a lot of us need. So.
Yeah, that's a great way to really step into this. And before we forget, we're going to flash this up a couple times. But if our producer Christian could go over to the discounted pricing, the special pricing right now, if you're watching, this is limited. So we're in July of 2025. If you're watching right now, the Global Leadership Summit comes up August 7th through 8th of 2025. So this is only good up until those dates. Just kind of walk it through the special offer, the code that has to be put in there. Like I said, that's a lot of information, and we'll show that again in just a few minutes. What I want to skip over to quickly is you just touched on something. There's more than 2 or 3 keynote speakers. If we could see the catalog of all of these speakers, and I know, without kind of painting you into a corner, maybe you can tell us 1 or 2 that you tend to lean towards, and give just a little background on this kind of star-studded lineup of people you know or should know.
Yeah, so of course, Craig Rochelle is our summit champion, and every year he comes with a GLS talk that just knocks it out of the park and just realigns us, gets us started for the GLS. He's kind of our first speaker. Whatever the topic the Lord has given him, he just nails it, and it just kind of sets the pace for the rest of the day or for the rest of the 2 day experience. Then we're going to end with our new CEO and president, John Ashcraft, or I'm sorry, not John, David Ashcraft. John is the senator, David
Right.
Ashcraft. And he is our new president CEO, has been with us for the last 2 years. He is the former pastor of LCBC Church in Pennsylvania area, the Philadelphia area, where they have over 22 campuses. He has come on board, and he has transformed the Global Leadership Network under his leadership to really help us push our vision towards, what we really are. We kind of drifted for a while, but he brought us back in, and just phenomenal leadership. And what he's going to speak on really is about, I wish I would have known something, these
Right.
ideas is, I wish I would have known that before I did this kind of a thing. Some of the surprises that are coming in are Nick Saban, the coach of Alabama. I know a lot of our Michigan people that are out there are a little like sore because he moved down there, but he's got a lot of attention being given to him these last couple of years and stuff, from the Airbnb commercials to
Yeah.
being in the NFL draft up in Green Bay in the last couple months ago. And so, but the one speaker I'm really looking forward to the most is Christine Kane. I haven't heard her in a while, and so I really am passionate about what she does, and even how she helps people find their purpose. And then how do you continue that, building that vision towards what God has called you to? Not everybody's called to serve in the church. And so, but they are given a purpose. God's given them a purpose. And it's really that, how do you keep that vision going, that God's given you? So I'm really excited to hear from her. There's all the other speakers are great. Bradley Rappaport. Oh my gosh. I'm over the moon for him because I love dancing. So, and he's all
Yeah.
about the groove. And he's going to teach us all how to, keep that groove going in our leadership development.
So I've probably personally attended 3 or 4 over the last 10 years. Took a break for a while. There's a lot to unload when you sit through these speakers for 2 days. There's just a lot. And then, of
Mhm.
course, you can purchase their books or get plugged in with them in a deeper way with their networks and influencers that they hang out with too. So there's a ton of those things. Um, you're listening right now and thinking, man, this guy's promoting this. Is he on your payroll? Is he's promoting this thing? I have personally seen ROI every time I plug in with this. And my tip for myself has always been, you know what? If I walk away with three nuggets that I jot down and I apply them to my daily personal, professional, spiritual, physical, mental focus, uh, it just continues to grow from there. A guy that I've always followed. It started with Zig Ziglar. I think years ago, Zig Ziglar was one of your speakers, the late Zig Ziglar, but quickly transitioned to John Maxwell. And as you know me personally, I've followed John Maxwell, many of his books. I kind of crashed his one-time impact offices that he had in Temecula, California. That's a quick story I'll tell you really quick. We were having dinner I was out there at a conference in San Diego. We heard about Temecula, drove up there, met some people there. I'm talking to this guy, and somehow we get on John Maxwell, and he says, John Maxwell, do you know his office is right next door? So we're waiting for our food at this restaurant. He and I run out the door, and it's like 7 o'clock at night, but it's still broad daylight. So I'm staring through the windows looking at John Maxwell's. At the time, he had a company called Impact. So that kind of dates where this is. But that was the thrill of my life. That's how close I got to John Maxwell at one time. But John C. Maxwell, phenomenal leader, can write about anything and talk to just about anybody. He's going to be one of your speakers. And then, of course, you mentioned Nick Saban. Just a suggestion. The Harbaugh brothers. You talk about Michigan and you talk about football, and I know he played with the Bears. Get both the Harbaugh brothers one time to get up there and have a conversation. I think that would be interesting too. I know they both are leadership and Christian men that would really get into this, so that would be an interesting one for a future date. But
Yeah.
so Joellen, as we progress through this, kind of give us the lay of the land. The GLS has been around a long time. It started with a pastor at a mega church in Barrington, Illinois in the 90s. It's grown from there. Here we are today, 30 years later. So give us maybe your version of what you experience in your travels, maybe some fun stories, some leaders that you're meeting as you travel around the country, and how that continues to bring it back to what the GLS is really about.
Yeah. So, like you said, we started in the 90s, and it really was the Willow Creek Community Church that, there was something fresh and new that was happening in churches, and people were just gravitating. And so they created a church event that was really, how do we help build leaders within the church? How do pastors become better pastors? How do youth pastors, children's pastors, music directors, and so it really became this thing for the church. But then some of the speakers that they were having were more, they had the business mindset. They had some of the, conflict resolution that could be crossed over not only into the church, but even into the marketplace, into corporate, into any kind of leadership role. And so they opened it up then to businesses to start attend the Global Leadership Summit. This then grew into what we started to satellite across the country. And yeah, satellites were mounted on churches and people were gathering together. And it just started to build, where we started with 7 satellites to now that today we're going to have over 550 sites across the United States, whether that's online or people gathering together online with their 6+ groups, or it's actual big premier sites that are happening where have a couple hundred to a couple thousand people that'll be attending. Our biggest site is in Fort Wayne, Indiana, called Love Fort Wayne. And so they gathered together close to 2,000 people, and they'll be in a big conference center. And really, it brings to a community is this place of collaboration. When you've got churches and organizations and businesses together, and they're hearing all of this leadership content, and they're sitting in the same room together, they're building relationship together, going, this is great stuff, but how do we implement it into our own community? And then they start meeting together and start figuring this out. And we start to see what we call these community collaboratives that are starting to pop up all over the country. That's the exciting thing that I get to see, is that when I go out, I was just in Eugene, Oregon, and I was talking to a pastor, and he's like, I'm hosting this because we have this church. It's called One Church, and they are all about bringing the churches together to serve the local community together, not individually, but how do we move together to make an impact in our community? And so we're seeing that across the country. We also see that somebody who attends the Global Leadership Summit and hearing stories about how they caught their vision of calling, where God is calling them, whether it was to start a bakery that makes birthday cakes for children in the foster care system, or it is just the idea of somebody sitting at the Global Leadership Summit, just getting fire hosed. And then at Christmas time, their boss says, hey, I sent you to the Global Leadership Summit. What did you learn there? How can we make an impact during Christmas in our local community? And he says, the only thing I know is darts and beer, and so he contacts the local bar, and he goes and says to the guy, I want to do a fundraiser to raise money for the people in our community that need to have Christmas, and our company wants to provide that for them. And within a matter of hours, raises $100,000, by having people come and put it on Facebook. I mean, this was a local story that happened here in Appleton, Wisconsin, several years ago. Yeah.
Let's bring up that discount offer again if we could. People are listening right now. They saw the code. You've got to get online. You plug the code in. You see it there, GLS uh,
GLS
25
25 US Field Team, well, USFT. This is my special
USFT.
offer to anybody who's out there listening. This is really for you to get the best rate. This is my gift to you. I am a field director across the United States. And so this is something that's only for you. We want to give you that best price right now. The price will go as high as $249. So you're going to save yourself $99,
Yeah.
or $89
So,
to use this.
so what we want to do, Joelle, in about 30 seconds left, what would be your final thoughts to kind of wrap it up or maybe summarize some things? Someone's busy listening, watching, writing things down feverishly. Who is this lady? What's going on? Let's give them the 30-second version of that so they can walk away and really engage today.
Yeah, so I would say, to be a leader is really constantly growing in your leadership. Don't ever set it aside and think you don't need to move forward and educate yourself more. The GLS is a 2-day experience. It's just 2 days. You get what you need. You can, use it to make better impact in the lives of the people that you serve as a leader. It also will inspire you to be a leader. What is it that God's calling you to? If you're not into leadership right now, how can you be the best pastor? How can you be the best CEO? How can you be the best manager, the best employee, the best mom, the best dad, the best coach? How can you be the best? And we want to give you those tools to be able to be the best that you can be.
That's
Yeah.
That's great. Really, I really appreciate that. That's Joellen Schwandt. She's got a big title, but if you want to think about her, she's one of the ambassadors, one of the boots on the ground for the Global Leadership Summit and this growing global leadership network. Thank you for joining us today, Joellen.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, there she goes, Joellen Schwandt from the Global Leadership Summit, August 7 and 8, 2025. If you want discounted special pricing, we mentioned that a couple times earlier on, so rewind this and you'll get the code, how to get them, but do it soon because it expires soon. But just some final thoughts today. If you're a leader and you're looking at how to sharpen your axe, there's 3 things we want to look at: sales leadership, leading others, and leading your organization. That's the best thing I can leave you with today. And like we always like to say, have a prosperous day.
You've been listening to the Joe Simon Podcast. Big ideas with powerful stories and real-time solutions. Business succession planning, executive benefits, employee benefits, tax beneficial savings, and more. Remember, information discussed here today is dated and not specific to your situation. Always seek personal counsel from qualified advisors. For more about Joe Simon, go to DaVinciInsurance.com. Joe Simon is a licensed insurance agent in the state of Wisconsin. Licensed to advise on accident and health, life insurance, disability insurance, and annuities, as well as qualified long-term care insurance. Make sure to visit the DaVinciInsurance.com archives for more of our podcasts.